Testing 1 2. 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 You'll be able to talk. Let's see if it will work. Testing 1 2. Yes. So you'll have to fit. You'll have to flip it down every time. Yeah, no.
I just didn't know. So, do you want us to wait for our things, or are we supposed to look at these guys and say, hey? Turn it off.
I would say no.
And the councilman.
Well, this one, these you can't turn off.
And then also saying.
This one you can.
I will.
But I'll just already.
Oh, it is from Robbie Potter. Gotcha. I'll turn it to you. You pick a question.
Shannon, did you decide to run?
Yeah, I'm gonna fill in for Shannon. She's not here.
So you're just gonna do it?
Fill in.
Good.
That one can probably.
Especially when it's going to be built across from this Budweiser distribution plant that's been here for 30 years. You know, they think it's going to put us on to ruin the character of Provo. Don't think so.
Testing 1 2. Wow, that turned down.
Hello, testing 1 2. Hello, testing. Neighbors, we're just give us a couple minutes. We're just having a few technical difficulties. We'll get started here very soon. I apologize if you can just be patient for a few more minutes.
Those two, you guys should not be able to talk over each other this time.
I can spend 10 years my whole time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Provo Central Area Neighborhoods Debate. We're very grateful that you could make it tonight. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Shannon Bingham. Afterwards, she's going to make an announcement.
Will the audience please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. There's a large-scale improvement project happening on 500 West between Freedom Boulevard and Bulldog sometime in 2018. And there will be a meeting next week here at the high school on Wednesday, October 11th at between 5 and 7 p.m. You can come and see the scale and the scope of the project and give feedback. One of the things that will happen because of the scale and scope of the project, the tunnel that the school children use to get to Timpanogos Elementary School will need to be removed. And so the intersection at 500 North and 500 West is going to be upgraded. And we are hoping to have your feedback and your ideas on how to make this a safe crossing for our school children. There's information out in the foyer about the project, and we ask that you look over it and come to the public meeting next Wednesday. And now we'll start the debates, I guess.
Thank you, Shannon. My name is Kirby Sneidman. I'm the North Park Neighborhood Chair. Let me explain how the format's going to go tonight. Sherry, if we can ask you to sit with the rest of the candidates on the stage. We're going to start with the council candidates. We're going to spend 30 minutes with the council candidates. Each of our moderators represent a neighborhood and also a local media. We have Janelle Pugmire with the Daily Herald. They're going to ask a question, and for the council candidates and the mayoral candidates, it's going to go the same. Candidates will have 1 minute answer and then a 30-second rebuttal. So in the case for the council candidates, of which there are 3 here tonight, for the seats that affect the central neighborhoods, there would be 3 candidates up. A question would be asked going from left to right. Each candidate would get 1 minute to respond, and then they'd start over with the first candidate getting 30 seconds as a rebuttal. Actually, let me think here. With the moderators, I think what we'll do is you can ask who you would like to, not with the council candidates, but with the mayoral candidates, we'll ask who you want to start the question with first, and we would like to mix that up. So that would be up to you. All right, so we're going to get going first with the council candidates. I'll be hosting the debate and introducing each of the neighborhood chairs as they ask their first question. And we're going to let each of the candidates have an opening statement. So right now, can I have the council candidates please step forward to the podiums. Because we only have 2 podiums, we're going to ask that Dave Sewell and Wesley Marriott share a podium. They're friendly guys, I've heard, so it won't be a problem. And before we get started on the opening statements, Dave Harding couldn't be here tonight, who is the District 5, one of the District 5 candidates. He was out of the country, I understand. And so instead, we're going to have Robert Jaramillo. Is that right, Robert? Okay, good. We're going to have Robert Jaramillo read a brief statement from Dave Harding, and then we're going to get started. Robert?
Greetings all. I'm sorely disappointed to not be with you tonight. I commend all of you for coming out tonight and caring enough about our community to become more informed voters. I want to thank our neighborhood chairs and vice chairs in Central Provo for organizing this event. Downtown Provo and the pioneer neighborhoods that surround it are a special area. Some of the challenges we face are not shared by the rest of the city, but so too are some of the treasures that we enjoy here. We must continue to work together as neighbors and in coordination with the city to address our challenges and to take full advantage of our opportunities. Central Provo is home, and we must protect, nurture, and cultivate our home. I work for a small, local biomedical startup. I am both a scientist and an engineer. As an engineer, it's my job to find elegant solutions to difficult problems. As a scientist, I'm trained to answer assumptions and critically evaluate evidence. These skills are very helpful in my service on the council. I have had the honor and privilege of representing District 5 on the Provo City Council for the past couple of years. I was selected in a special election to fill the remainder of the 4-year term left vacant by the tragic passing of our former representative, Stephen Hales. During these 2 years, I have served to the best of my ability. Highlights include chairing a committee of community stakeholders to develop policies guiding growth in West Provo, improving the development approval process for both developers and neighbors, partnering to improve the sustainability and fiscal responsibility of city finances, and working with the community to refine and realize our vision for Provo City. A top priority has been to make it easy for residents to stay informed on the issues before the council and to be fully transparent. Nearly every council meeting is documented on my council blog, provodistrict5.blogspot.com, including previews with background information on agenda items and post-meeting reports with the rationale for how I voted. I am campaigning on my record of the past 2 years. I invite my neighbors to judge how well I have fulfilled my responsibilities on the council. I am willing to serve for another 4 years if you still want me to be your representative on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. We're going to get started with our first question from Kira McKellen, who is the Mazer Neighborhood Chair.
Do we get to introduce ourselves?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead. Let's start with Dave Sewell and go left.
How much time do we have?
You have 1 minute. By the way, I apologize, we're not professionals up here. We're doing the best we can. Each of us is a neighborhood chair or vice chair, except for Janelle, who's with the local media. And so this may be a little bit rough, but we're trying our best, and we hope it's a great opportunity for everybody. So I apologize. Let's have a 1 minute statement from each of the candidates. I'll be timing. I'll act as the timer. If I interrupt you, I apologize right now, but it's just to let you know that the minute's passed. Okay, Dave, if you'd like to start, and then go right from there.
Thank you, Kirby, for organizing this, and to all of you for coming. It's been a privilege to serve you these past 4 years on the council. Each year I've gained experience and developed relationships that help me serve more effectively. Comparing my service to the 2-mile run that I used to do in high school track, I'm rounding the turn, going on to the straightaway at the end of my 4th lap. The learning curve in council service is steep. Each year I grow more effective. I've picked up the pace with each succeeding lap. It's up to you as the voters to decide whether I stop at the end of the 4th lap or continue to accelerate for 4 more laps. I'll continue to work hard. I'll continue to listen and engage with you. I will work with your new mayor to send a message that Provo is open for business. I will work toward more transparent and priority-based budgeting. I will work to protect neighborhoods and quality of life, including our water supply, our natural amenities, and our air quality. I ask for your vote and your support to do another 4 laps around the track.
Thank you, Dave. Wesley?
Hi, thanks so much for being here, guys. Most of you, I'm seeing similar faces here, and I like that. Thanks for being so engaged. I'm sorry that we're kind of a letdown because you guys were expecting the mayoral candidates, and now you're looking at the city council people, but we'll try and make it enjoyable as much as possible. About 2 years ago, I sat down and talked to Mayor John Curtis, and mostly because I was so impressed with the way he branded and put Provo on the map. This is an incredible place, and as I was talking to him, I said, hey, I want to get involved. How can I help with this branding? And he said, you should run for a position in the city. I've thought a lot about that, and I've thought a lot about the opportunity to brand the city in a really good way. He's done an incredible job in the administrative side, and I personally believe that the city council needs good branding, needs good energy, needs to be proactive.
Thank you, Wesley. You can finish that if you want.
Thanks. We'll talk later.
Tanisha.
My name is Tanisha Zantamella. I do have a little bit of a cold. I'm a little sick, so I'm going to try to project as much as possible right now. I am running for City Council District 5. I was born in Provo, and I moved back in 2011. And I told my family that when I was moving back, it was like coming home again. I love living here, and I've loved all the opportunities that I've had to help out in my community. We were taught constantly when I was growing up to live where you live, and that means to do whatever you need to do in your community to make the lives of those who live there better. And there were a lot of residents, there were a lot of young people, just all sorts of different people who told me that they felt very disconnected from city government, and they felt that city government wasn't listening to them. And so my goal is, and one thing that I've made very clear, is that I want to listen to you. I think the most important thing about a leader is not that they, can go out and tell everyone else what to do. Rather, it is to listen and to be good at listening and to be willing to do what the constituents want. Thank you so much.
All right, our first question for the council candidates is going to come from Kira McClellan, the Mazer Neighborhood Chair. And we're going to start with answers from left to right, with Dave to Wesley to Tanisha.
Okay. Council people, if elected or re-elected to the city council, what would be your top priorities?
I have several priorities going into a new term. One is economic development. As I mentioned, I've learned that I think it's important for the mayor and the council to kind of be on the same page in projecting a message of that Provo's open for business and that we're business friendly, so that's a priority for me. Another priority is to continue the direction that we've been going on the council toward more transparent and priority-based budgeting. I think that's important rather than just incremental budgeting, sort of starting with what you had last year and deciding where the new money goes from there. Sustainability is also very important to me, making sure that our natural resources are protected and we're planning ahead for our water supply and maintaining a good air quality and that sort of thing.
Am I going to just say some comments and then we're going to have rebuttal, or we're just going to go through?
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to...
No, that's okay. Again, we're doing our best, so let me explain the process again. Each candidate will get 1 minute answer, and then we'll come back to the beginning and have a 30-second rebuttal.
Okay, great, thanks.
You just used 20 seconds. Well, no,
okay,
I'm kidding.
I'm going quick. Okay, I'm going fast, yeah. So one of the first things is also along the same lines as Dave, economic development. I'm a business guy. I started my own business. I worked in consulting. And I know that to have a thriving community, we have to have good business development. I personally believe that the city council right now isn't open for business. And there's a number of items, whether it's solar energy, whether it's not accepting businesses to come into Provo. There's a number of situations that we can't have to have actual economic growth. Another one is that the West Side development, we need to actually have really good West Side development and make sure that when we are doing that the infrastructure is in the right place. We have overdue, millions and millions of dollars overdue for infrastructure for the city. And we need to be planning ahead instead of looking to right now, we're looking to the future. If we don't do that, we are in a huge world of hurt. And I think that having good proactive solutions and communication is so important for the city. Did you include my 20 seconds on that?
Yes, I did. Tanisha.
So my thoughts about what I would want to do if I were to be elected come from discussions that I've had with residents. So the first thing is affordable housing. I think that sometimes when we hear that, we think of just Section 8 housing. That's not the only option for affordable housing, but I think that we need to be working actively to find more solutions. There's so many people that want to move to Provo, and that makes me very happy. And there's a lot of people who want to stay in Provo, but they can't afford to. So we need to work to find sustainable solutions so that people can live in Provo. The second thing is to work to listen to local business owners. I've heard from quite a few local business owners that they have felt frustrated with the council in the past and that they weren't being listened to. And I think that that's a really important thing. We want Provo to be open to business, for business. And lastly, I just want people to be connected to
Thank you,
city
Tanisha.
government. Thank you.
All right, we're going to start with 30-second rebuttals. Dave, if you'd like to start.
Regarding the mention of solar energy, the council actually did take care of the issue that we had with that. There was, at one point, there was a proposed surcharge for solar panels. We put together a 3-month-long commission, reversed that decision, and came up with a good solution that handled that particular issue. This council is open for business. I chair the Development Approval Process Review Committee. We have brought in developers and listened to their concerns about the process and made a number of improvements to streamline the process and remove obstacles.
Thank you, Dave.
For business in Provo.
Wesley.
So actually the solar energy sector is really interesting because we're ahead of their time, and so the net metering program in Provo is really unfriendly to solar energy. There's Mint, I've talked to Mint Solar, Vivint Solar, who actually don't like working in Provo for that specific reason. The second thing is, like, there's multiple people who on the council who voted against bringing like a brew pub into Provo. Whether you're against that for drinking purposes or not, we need to be open to allow businesses to come and fail if they are going to fail.
Thank you, Wesley.
And not allow them to stop before they get here.
Tanisha.
I think a lot of what was touched on about business owners, there's still business owners here who don't feel like the council connects with them or is listening. And so whether or not the current council feels that they personally are working to do that, I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. But the fact of the matter is there are still business owners who don't feel that their needs are being met. And it's really important that we do that.
Thank you, Tanisha. Our next question is going to come from Janelle Pugmire, a Daily Herald reporter. We're going to start this time from left to right. So Tanisha, you'll respond first, and then Wesley, and then Dave.
Great, Tanisha. Thanks for being a woman who cares. And Dave, start listening. This is my question. For more than 2 years, several residents and stakeholders have asked for at least a moment at the council work session to present the idea of a brew pub in Provo. 70% of it will be non-alcoholic soda, yet we can only get one council member, Dave Connett, to approve such an ability to come and talk and present. If you get reelected, are you willing to get with Dave Connett and move this initiative forward? Tell us why or why not.
Thank you, Tanisha.
So the short answer to that is yes, I would, and here's why. I think it's really important to make sure that we're having these discussions, and especially to just hear out the brew pub. I personally don't drink, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other people who would benefit from the brew pub or who would want to use that service. And as Janelle mentioned, there are lots of non-alcoholic beverages there, which I would be drinking. So I think that it's really important to at least even have those discussions, to be willing to even talk about those things, even if they don't align with maybe what we personally would feel we would want, right? Like if I had my own village, I probably wouldn't have a brew pub because I don't drink. But this is a community with people who want to at least have the discussion about the brew pub, and I think that's important.
Thank you, Tanisha. Wesley?
It's just pure economics. I mean, I didn't really get to talk about it, but if a company comes into the city and fails, it fails because it didn't work, or the citizens didn't want it, or it wasn't executed well. So if the brew pub came in, and my thing is, we don't need to focus too much on the brew pub, but I think this mentality in the city is what we don't need. We need people to feel like they can come here and work and be able to make a business succeed. And if that doesn't happen, then they can leave. But not putting it on the agenda and actually not working through it is not open for business.
Thank you. Dave?
I see this as more than just an economic issue. First of all, by the way, I don't think there's any regulation that prevents a brew pub from coming as long as alcohol is manufactured somewhere else. I believe what the stumbling block is the requirement for a license to manufacture locally. And that was something I had concerns about. Alcohol kills more people in the United States than heroin, cocaine, and prescription opioids combined. Local manufacturing would increase opportunities for that. I think that's something that would need to be looked at very carefully. It's not a pure economic issue. There are many other health and safety effects that go along with increased alcohol consumption. On the other side of the coin, if the citizens wanted to put something like this on the ballot and a majority voted that that's what they wanted, I think that's great. I just don't feel
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to have 30-second rebuttals. Tanisha?
Yeah. So my first thing is, again, whether or not we're going to have a brew pub, it's important to even just have that discussion at all. And I think that was a lot of people's frustration, is that no one really wanted to have the discussion at all. I'm very sensitive, and I've worked a lot in the nonprofit sector for a while, and so it is really important to me that we are doing things that lead to safety and that wouldn't harm other people. And
thank you, Tanisha.
The brew pub would. Thank you.
Leslie.
So if she said it was 70% non-alcoholic, the alcohol is not the problem. Like, in the end, you can go to city limits and get your alcohol, and then that could kill a lot of people. And I agree that, you know, there's a lot of dangers with alcohol. But what we're talking about is the mentality of the city council. Are we open? Are we talking about issues? Are we hearing what the people want? We'd even put it on the agenda to talk about
Thank
it,
you, Wesley.
to vote about it. So we need to do that.
Dave?
Again, this is not just a pure economic issue. It's just not a matter of attracting business. And the process here is very similar to many other issues. Somebody comes up with a proposal, goes to a council member. If there's at least 2 council members that want to have a discussion on it, then it goes on the agenda. And in this case, there weren't. That's all that happened there.
Thank you. Our next question is going to come from Eric Chase, the North Park Neighborhood Vice Chair. And we're going to start with Wesley first, and then Dave, and then Tanisha.
All right, thank you for coming. At this year's 4th of July parade, Encircle, a local resource center for LGBTQ plus teens and their families, had their spot in the parade revoked at the last minute when festival organizers decided that their inclusion would be inconsistent with the standards of the Freedom Festival. The Freedom Festival receives over $150,000 in cash and in-kind services from Provo City each year. Should Provo City continue to provide funding to the Freedom Festival despite their open discrimination against LGBT community groups like Encircle?
Thank you. Wesley?
So again, the so horrible that they did that, right? Because when you put someone on the agenda and then the last minute you yank it away, that's hard, and that's not very appropriate, right? But the company is not a Provo company, so they have their rights to do that, right? They have the rights to be able to do those choices, and Provo makes the choice to give the money to that company. And then they make their choices to do whatever they want with that company. And I think that's important for them to be able to have that right, which is what makes America great. Do I think it was in bad taste? Yes. Do I think they should have included them? If they agreed to it earlier, then include them, right? They're people, but I believe that if we want to keep it a family environment, if we want to keep these things to a situation, then they have the right to keep it that way. Do I think it was in bad taste? Do I think the process and how it all happened was bad?
Thank you, Wesley. Tanisha.
So I am familiar with people who use Encircle services. And they talk about how much it has enhanced their lives and how much of a safe harbor it's been. They do a lot of great work over there. I think sometimes for many of us in this community, people actually thought that Encircle was like, I'm not sure, like there was some sketchy stuff happening, when in fact it's just a resource provided to LGBTQ youth in our community to help them have the resources that they need. There's a huge problem with LGBTQ suicide in Utah. Do I think Provo City should be funding that? No. I think that we need to send a message that Provo is somewhere for all residents. If the Freedom Festival, yes, they have the right to pull people out of their parade. That is correct. However, we are
Thank you,
funding
Tanisha.
them next year.
Dave?
The Provo Freedom Festival, as Wes mentioned, is an independent organization, and they have done so much good for our community over the years. Yes, I absolutely would continue to fund them. Now that, in saying that, that is not a comment about the value of Encircle. It's not a comment about what happened in this particular incident. As a council member who votes on funding, I'm not even supposed to put any pressure on them that could be interpreted as withholding funding if they don't do such and such. That could actually jeopardize their tax exempt status. So I would encourage you as community members to just talk directly with the members of the board and share your feelings with them. They are great people, they will listen, and I'm sure they will work this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. 30 seconds rebuttal, starting with Wesley.
Do we need the rebuttals? I agree with Dave. So I can pass it on to Tanisha. I mean, I think Tanisha has some good thoughts on it, but I personally believe that, yeah, Dave's right. They're a business. Provo's deciding to fund them because they're an incredible organization. How they decide to use that money, that's their choice, but it brings incredible things to the city and it brings people together, and that's important.
Thank you, Wesley.
Should we have that conversation with them? Yeah.
So I don't at all dispute the fact that Freedom Festival is a business. I understand that. I do want to add that I think there's ways to compromise here. I don't think it has to be all or nothing, but considering the actions and some of the things that happen and the message that it sends about this city to other people who want to move here, who are part of marginalized groups, I don't think that's a good message. So we can continue to fund them if they are making sure that this place is a safe place for everyone. But I don't dispute it's its own business.
Tanisha.
We are funding them though.
Dave?
Not all the way, though.
Dave, thank you.
Sounds like Wes and I are on the same page on this one, so I don't really have a rebuttal.
Okay. And we'll move to our next and final council question for the council candidates. This question is coming from Jamie Littlefield, the Timp Neighborhood Vice Chair.
In the past couple of years, the council has considered reducing funding to the Downtown Provo organization and for the Economic Development Department. Do you believe that the council should award these entities more or less funding in future budgets?
We're going to start with Tanisha, and then Wesley, and then Dave.
I think I've met with Quinn Peterson. I've met with people who work in economic development, and the work that they do is absolutely essential to the city. They do a lot of great work that strengthens local businesses. They do a lot of great work. I know Allison Liu works doing a lot of great stuff like the braid workshop and things like that that I think are absolutely essential. So I do think that they should have more funding. I think it's an important facet of this community.
Can you repeat the question real quick?
Sure. In the past couple of years, the council has considered reducing funding for the Downtown Provo organization and for the Economic Development Department. Do you believe that the council should award these entities more or less funding in future budgets?
The downtown area has been so incredible for Provo and its revival. I've talked to a number of residents, and probably some of you who've gone to, who've like, I never went to Center Street because it was always so congested. There wasn't a lot going on, but now it's beautiful. They've put in a good amount of budget into it. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that the city council has put that as an item on the list, and I would continue funding those efforts.
So this year, the budget committee tossed out the idea of cutting their funding, which is, I'm sure, why you asked the question. I fought against that suggestion vociferously, and we were successful in not cutting their funding. And a result of that discussion is we've had economic development and Quinn Peterson from Downtown Provo, Inc. come in and present to us. I think the council's getting more familiar with what they're doing and recognizing the value of their efforts. I definitely would not support cutting their funding. I'm not sure about increasing it. I'm open to that idea. We definitely depend on them for a lot of our success in what we're doing downtown and in our economic development. So I'm definitely not cutting, but am open to the idea of increasing.
Thank you, Dave. 30-second rebuttal, starting with Tanisha.
I don't particularly have a huge rebuttal, but I will just reiterate how important downtown Provo is, how important the work that Quinn does and the people that work in economic development, and how much downtown Provo adds to our city. I moved closer to downtown Provo just so I could be closer in walking distance, and I absolutely love it. It's such an asset to the city.
Thank you, Wesley.
Well, I believe that the funding should continue as it is in the downtown. I also have some concerns as a person who did budgets in management consulting and my personal business, concerns on how the budget is being run a little bit, and we need to take a better look at that. So just as things go forward,
Thank you,
I
Wesley.
hope we can have a conversation about that.
Dave?
So just a quick defense of, I think, why those ideas were even floated in the first place. I think the council hasn't been as involved as it should be, or as I would like to see it be, with the Economic Development Department, and that has been corrected. We've had them come explain what they're doing a lot more, so I don't think we're going to see that again. And then with Downtown Provo, Inc., I think there was a period there where the leadership was kind of wandering, and I think that's kind of where that suggestion came from during that period. But we now have a very dynamic and very effective leader, and I think things are moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Dave. Before we ask the council candidates to sit with the audience, we're going to give them 1 minute for a final statement. And we'd also encourage everyone, if you want to speak more with the council candidates, they have booths set up in the foyer. Please, afterwards, after this event is over, you can go and speak more with the council candidates. We'd encourage you to do that. They do make a big difference in the city. So we're going to start with Tanisha, and then Wesley, and then Dave. 1 minute for final statements.
I just want to say how appreciative I am for all the moderators and for Kirby for putting this together, and for everyone who is here and took time out of your night to be part of this. It's so wonderful, and that's one of my favorite things about Provo, is to just see how actively engaged and how passionate the residents are about making this a better place to live. I would love to earn your vote, and I want to listen to you. I want to be a representative for you, for District 5. I have loved the time that I have spent in Provo, and I want to give back. And I think that we need younger leadership, considering the median age in Provo, and I think that we need a woman on the council. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to reiterate, thank you so much for being here and listening to us, even though we're not the people you really want to hear, or they're behind us. But I want to say that Provo needs proactive, young, energetic leadership to continue down the path we are with John Curtis's rebranding, with his good work, with how the revival of Provo has come about. We need to continue with the city council pushing that proactive rather than reactive, and actually looking to the future and seeing there are problems in the future coming, there's growth happening, and are we being proactive, or are we waiting for it to come to us? and we need the energy, and that's why I hope you have I hope you vote for me, because I will be out there working, I will be proactive, I'll be looking to the future, and I'll want to serve you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming again. I see a lot of you that I've engaged with in various ways and on various issues. Some of you are on my email list. If any of you are interested in signing up afterwards, by the way, I'll have a sign-up sheet. I'm excited for the direction that Provo is heading. I feel optimistic. Council is being proactive. We're looking far into the future, and I want to continue doing that even more so. Again, consider it a privilege to have served you. I have plenty of energy. I work very hard, put in long hours, and I think I'm only getting more effective as time goes on. So one more time, I would love to have your support and your vote to do another on that track. Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to invite the council candidates to have a seat in the audience, and could we give the council candidates a round of applause, please? With that, we'd like to invite the mayoral candidates to come to the podiums. We're going to give each mayoral candidate a 1 minute for an opening statement. We're going to start with Michelle. Michelle, when you're ready.
I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. This is coming home to me, Provo. I graduated. I was just having a little bit of a flashback. I believe I held a boy's hand for the first time, right? Out in that audience during an assembly. I'm thrilled to be here, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules. I know there's a lot going on in the city and a lot of activities that you could be at, so thank you for having a vested interest, and thank you to Kirby and the team over there. This is great. Let me just quickly tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Provo. I was raised by a single mom with 7 siblings. I had to work for everything I got. Nothing came easy. We worked really hard, me and my siblings and my mother, to make it. And by doing that, it gave me balance. I've been on both sides of the fence. I know the city. I know what it feels like. Regardless of where you live, I can honestly say I can find the balance.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay.
Sherry.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. And thank you to our neighborhood chairs who put a lot of time into formulating the questions for this evening, but also in that service to their neighborhoods to try to make them better. And as the core neighborhoods of our city, I am very grateful for all of that work. Thank you for coming. I'm Sherry Hall Everett, and I'm here to interview for the job as your mayor. I am the CEO. I am the chief strategist. I am the one that works with the council to help work through policies. I am the one that works with our businesses to help bring them to our community and to help balance that. I am the one to help work through the growth equation that is coming to us. We have huge growth on its way, and that is one of the most important things that we can be balancing. You're going to hear some answers tonight, and they'll be pretty short because we're only going to be given about a minute. We may sound quite similar in those answers, but I would invite you, however, to listen very carefully, because the real difference between us is in where those answers come from.
Thank you, Sherry. All right. Our first question for the mayoral candidates is going to come from Terry McCabe, the newly elected, just this week, Franklin Neighborhood Chair. Terry?
At yesterday's Utah County budget meeting, the Health Department cited new regulations relating to all Utah County cities' sewer department, releasing nitrates and phosphorus into Utah Lake. Provo will be granted a deferment because our sewer infrastructure needs to be updated. How will you address this issue?
We're going to first ask Sherry to respond, and then Michelle, and then there'll be 30-second rebuttals.
Thank you. You know, government changes regulations quite frequently. And I think this is one that we're really interested in because we want the lake to be healthy. We want to do our part. It comes with a large sticker price. And with 50% of us bearing the burden for 100% of the tax burden in this city, we need to be very, very careful about how we move forward and not to overburden our citizens. We do need to rebalance some of that equation. There will be some fees and things that will allow others to participate in, But we will be able to solve this problem, and my commitment is that we'll solve it like we've solved problems when I was on the council, with transparency, with education, with outreach. You'll understand what we're doing, and I ask you to come with us on that.
Michelle?
It's interesting, the water reclamation system in Provo. I had the privilege of touring it for over 3 hours. I saw more than I probably ever wanted to see, but I learned a lot. I spent hours talking to them and them showing me the issues and situations. If anyone is aware of where that's placed, it's over by East Bay. In cities, it's supposed to be at the lowest point of your city. Provo's grown. There's a lot of growth. We're having to install pumps to get sewage pumped up to it. Plus, with the new regulations, I don't know if our facility is up to par. It's never fun to be a mayor that focuses on the sewer, but let me tell you something. When it's all backed up in every one of your homes, you're going to be glad we did. It's something that has to be looked at and addressed very closely.
Thank you. 30-second rebuttals, starting with Sherry.
Thank you. There are a lot of new technologies that are coming on as well, and this gives us an opportunity to update our infrastructure that has aged in our city. One of the challenges we've had is not preparing very well over the years to update that infrastructure. And I applaud the council's effort to be able to wrap their arms around this and to be able to look at how we pay for these things and how we prepare for the infrastructure needs that we have in the future. And yes, this is one that will respond to growth.
Thank you, Sherry. Michelle?
My focus tonight is needs versus wants. And I hope that's your takeaway when you leave here. I am a needs versus wants person. The water reclamation system is a need. We may want to do something fabulous, but this is a need. And as your mayor, I will consider the needs versus wants and take into consideration every single dollar that will have to come from the constituents and the budgets, et cetera, to make this happen.
Thank you, Michelle. Y'all are doing great on time. Our next question is going to come from Robbie Potter, the Dixon Neighborhood Chair. And we'll start with Michelle and then Sherry.
Thank you again for your service and willingness to run in this. The topic and the need has been repeatedly discussed, but can you please share specifically what you will do as mayor to encourage the larger businesses, those with 100 employees plus, to come to Provo?
Provo's a fascinating town. We are known as the incubator city. We have these amazing, brilliant companies that are the startups here. They start here and then they outgrow us. We need them to stay. How can we entice them to stay? We need these big businesses. When they do well, everyone does well. If the big companies come with 100 plus employees, similar to Duncan Aviation, that is now increasing their employee base, everyone benefits because it lowers all our taxes. And due to the unique situation of BYU and Provo and the church and the hospital, those are not tax entities. So we have to focus on getting big business here that will help lower our taxes so that we can address some of the heavy issues that are coming our way.
Thank you, Michelle. Sherry?
Thank you. That's a big problem to solve in 60 seconds. But I can tell you that I've been working on it for 16 years. There's construction going on right now along University Avenue that will bring transit and connect front runner stations. Transit is one of the most important top priorities to those in the tech industry. Connecting us with Silicon Slopes is one of the ways that we overcome a hurdle and be able to attract and retain these tech companies and these large businesses to our city. There are lots of other mechanisms that we can use in redevelopment, or we can also use strategic partnerships as well. Finally, our biggest opportunity to bring those kinds of businesses is in East Bay and in our downtown. We need to be able to be willing to go up and bring more value in the property revenues on a lot, but also to be able to build taller buildings that will allow these companies to come and expand.
We're going to give time for 30-second rebuttals, but let me just say something about the reason we allow for rebuttals. You don't have to do this, but we would appreciate it in those rebuttals, perhaps that you could provide how you feel about the response that came from the other person. If you agree, if you disagree, maybe help us understand the difference between the candidates here. So with that, we'll give 30 seconds of rebuttal for Michelle and then 30 seconds for Sherry.
Thank you. With redevelopment and enticing companies to come and open up shop here, we have to realize that it has to be the right project and the right time. We have to be careful with that. We can't be careless. Provo's too valuable. I'm on the Board of Education, as you know. I'm in my second term, 7th year. I was elected both times to serve the citizens of Provo, and I thank you for that. And I enjoy what I'm doing right now. I love being on the Board of Education. But because of that experience,
Thank you, Michelle.
we have worked a lot with the city in partnerships with this situation.
Thank you. What I've heard from my opponent is that she studied a lot of these things. She's worked on the school board, but we're watching these businesses come in to other communities. Sandy has added 7 12-story buildings with jobs that median income is at $90,000 a year. We need careers in this city. We don't need minimum wage jobs, we need careers. And we need to be able to do the things that are best practices in other areas.
Thank you,
I have
Sharon.
that experience.
Our next question is going to come from Kira McClellan, the Mazer Neighborhood Chair. And we'll start, the response will first come from Sherry and then Michelle.
Provo's central neighborhoods are some of the most walkable and bikeable neighborhoods along the Wasatch Front. What will you do to increase pedestrian and bicycle amenities in these and other neighborhoods in Provo?
Oh, that's a great question. This is something that I've been working on forever, it seems. Since I was on the council, and now when I left the council, I served on our Transportation Mobility Advisory Committee. We have been working on a bicycle master plan in conjunction with our bicycle advocacy group here in the city. We've passed that plan, made that recommendation up to the council, and it is now part of our transportation plan. We're also looking at pedestrian improvements in those areas. We are also looking at a complete street policy, which is almost ready to go ahead and send to the Planning Commission and to our City Council. A complete street is one that serves exactly the needs that you're addressing. It's connected to our downtown. There are ADA things that help people in wheelchairs and with disabilities to be able to navigate. We are looking at bike paths, and one of the exciting things that we're going to have in this community
Thank you, Sherry.
on 200 North, and I'll tell you in a minute.
The minute goes by really fast when
It does.
when you're talking, just so you know. So growth is coming, and those neighborhoods where you're the neighborhood chair are historical. They're charming. They're beautiful neighborhoods. The local neighborhood schools are amongst those neighborhoods. They're walkable neighborhoods. They're engaging neighborhoods. And with the growth coming, we have to be smart about our growth. We have to look into options. We have to be aware of the parking problem and encourage people to walk more, ride your bikes more. I know we live in a little bit of a tricky climate for that, but we need to embrace that and put it to use and get outside and enjoy our beautiful city that we live in.
Thank you, Michelle. Sherry, 30-second rebuttal.
I agree. Those are beautiful historic neighborhoods. On 200 North, in order to keep it beautiful and historic, and because there aren't a lot of parks in our Joaquin neighborhood, we're creating a linear park all the way up. It's not 200 North, excuse me, 200 East. We're creating a linear park all the way up the 200 East corridor. It will be a bike boulevard. It will allow those students that travel on Front Runner to be able to come from the Front Runner station and have a protected route all the way to BYU. That's an actual solution that I've been. So while we talk
Thank you,
about
Sherry.
the things, I'm doing them.
It's interesting because that is going to be such a big asset to our community. And we, I've visited the bicycle committee multiple times and the clean air committee. I see a couple members here tonight, and thank you for coming out. They are passionate about this. They're passionate about getting people outside, and so am I. I will do whatever I can as your mayor to promote that and get the community engaged in biking, walking, and using our roads in the most effective way.
Thank you, Michelle. That was perfect 30 seconds there. All right, our next question is going to come from Janelle Pugmire, Daily Herald reporter. Janelle?
Who gets this question first?
Oh, yes, and this question first will go to Michelle and then Sherry.
Hey, Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Nice to see you over there.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Okay, here we go. Now, if I can read this, I'm sorry, I'm a little old lady here. The downtown neighborhood, that's all you guys, are filled with vibrant families that have a flavor of diversity and a difference that maybe than their neighbors on the East Bench or River Bottoms or whatever. But they make up a huge part of Provo. With that sometimes comes schisms. Residents maybe think, live, eat, worship, whatever, differently. So the question I have to you is, these differences can cause schisms within the city, within schools and churches. What is your plan to unify and build bridges with residents as Provo continues to grow and burgeon and change?
Michelle?
You used 2 key words in your question, Janelle, so thank you. Bridge building and engage. Those are things that I plan to do, and I have done. My track record speaks for it. If you'll go back and look at my board track record and my other boards I see that I have the reputation for being a bridge builder. We know our neighbors in Provo. Our neighbors, we care about them. We share the good times and the bad times with our neighbors. And we have to be very aware of diversity. The good thing is look at me, I'm Michelle Kafusi. I'm not Tongan or Polynesian, but I married the dang cutest Polynesian you've ever seen. And so talk about diversity, I'm all over that. I'm living it.
Thank you, Michelle. Sherry?
Thank you. We are becoming more diverse, and I love it. We have great people with great contributions. And when we as citizens begin to look at people for the value of who they are and what their gifts are and how they contribute, we see them as people. And the problems that we think we have by not honoring diversity disappear because they're individuals. I see people as individuals. I see their contribution. And one of the great joys of the last several decades of my public service has been exploring different ideas with people, having them tell me what's important to them, sitting down and working on problems together, not agreeing and walking away as great friends anyway. And then even coming up with a third alternative. I love Covey's principle of third alternatives.
Thank you, Sherry. Michelle, 30-second rebuttal.
Fantastic. I actually want to share a little story with you. My son came home from school one day and said, "Mom, you didn't tell me I was brown." I said, "Who told you you were brown?" He's like, "My teacher. You didn't tell me I was brown." And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. So immediately, because the hands-on mom I am, I run down to the school and sign up to volunteer and be the room mother and engage in that classroom so I can learn. And did it go off? Oh, there we go. And immediately submerged myself and immersed myself with all the families and started working with
Thank you, Michelle.
cultural, and it's been fantastic.
Sherry?
At the core, each of us is diverse. Each of us is an individual. Each of us has love and passion for what we do in this community. I took my daughter to preschool several years ago after raising her with a couple of single moms, and one had Chinese daughters, the other one had African-American daughters, and I took her to preschool and she came out and she goes, "Mom, there's people like me." It was kind of a reverse for that, but I've never ever
Thank you,
seen
Sharon.
color.
All right, our next question is going to come from Jamie Littlefield, the Temp Neighborhood Vice Chair. And Sherry, will ask you to respond first, and then Michelle.
Okay, here comes a long one, but it's an important one for downtown. So, Provo City Code requires that new parking structures in the downtown 2 zone are built inside of the middle of the block rather than facing the street. The Liberty Center apartments are a good example of following this code. But there are rumors that a massive parking garage will be built facing 200 North, leaving us with a giant wall of parking. Would you ask developers to follow code when constructing new parking downtown?
And that one's mine first, right?
Yes.
All right. Yes. Yes. And yes. Now, that said, we also need to be aware that there are expenses involved with that and how we build those parking structures. They may convert at some point where we change our technology in our day. But if we're going to focus on pedestrian features in a community, we need to create the kinds of things that connect us and make it easier to walk along a block. So yes, I do agree that we can do our parking structures much better.
Thank you, Sherry. Michelle?
That's the beauty of local government, isn't it? As I've been in local government for over 17 years in Provo, I've been amazed at the ability to make changes. If a code comes into play, or a policy or procedure, and there's relevant information that addresses it, letting you know that it's not current or it's not the best policy or procedure for the city, there are tools that can make it so you can change that, which is fantastic. Parking is an issue. How many of you have been to the convention center and seen that new building? You walk out on the patio and where's the mountain? Where's Mount Timpanogos? It's gone. The view's gone. We have to be smart with those kinds of things. I had a dear friend say, I love being in downtown Provo. I love being in the fishbowl and looking out and seeing the mountains. We need to protect that. That's invaluable.
Thank you, Michelle. 30-second rebuttals. Sherry?
Thank you. So, years ago we used to ride horses, and we made some changes. Transportation changes too. And I think we just have to be aware of that as we make these decisions. How long we're going to pay for structure, how long we're going to incentivize a structure. And we take that into balance with emerging technologies that are not too far off, and we make a wise investment.
Thank you, Sherry. Michelle?
Those of you that have experienced big city life and paid, $80 to park for the day, or to get your car off the street, another $70, etc. We're not there yet. Parking's expensive. To build a parking lot is expensive. To go underground is expensive. But we have to consider every single avenue. We have to listen. We have to meet the needs of the citizens and do it with class. And do it conservatively. Is it a need or is it a want? I'm focused strictly on needs.
Thank you, Michelle. The next question is going to go to a moderator, but I just want the audience to think. We're going to shake it up a little bit. I'm going to try and come down with a mic. If there's somebody in the audience that wants to ask a question, I'm going to select one of y'all from down there. So just keep that in mind. That'll be the next question, the question after the next question. The next question is going to be from Eric Chase, the North Park Neighborhood Vice Chair. Eric?
Provo City owns its own power company, and one of the mayor's responsibilities is to be the head of that utility. Provo Power has major investments in power production, including owning wholly or partly solar, hydroelectric, wind, natural gas, and coal power plants. Now, air quality issues aside, should the city be working towards reducing our greenhouse gas emissions coming from the power that we use? And do you believe in the scientific consensus of global warming caused by greenhouse gas emissions?
First, we'll start with Michelle, and then we'll go to Sherry.
Greenhouse effect. It's fascinating. It's on the tip of everybody's tongue. 15 years ago, well, maybe 20 years ago, the greenhouse effect wasn't talked about. ozone layer and our footprint and what we're leaving behind. Everything counts. We have to be aware. We have to take responsibility for what we're doing now, because that's going to impact our children, our grandchildren, and our generations to come. And I personally believe that every little bit we do helps. I walk out to the recycling bin probably 10 times a day, and my kids never do. And I always tell them, I'm doing this for your kids. You guys need to get better at this. It's true. We have to take it serious.
Thank you, Michelle. Sherry?
Thank you. Provo belongs to a municipal power agency called UMPA. It's a coalition of cities, and they work together to develop our power resources, and they have been focused on this very thing, lowering our carbon footprint, using more efficient power resources, and we now own solar farms throughout the state of Utah. That being said, every morning somebody at Provo City wakes up and they find the least expensive fuel or electricity on the market, and they purchase what we need each day. The other systems are there for backup, and that's how we save so much money. Our power company is amazing, and it's something that is an incredible asset for this community. That organization is already doing the very thing you're asking for. They're even working on ways for us to participate as citizens in solar, even if we don't install solar into our home. And so I am very much in favor of us moving forward.
Thank you, Sherry.
With our power agency.
We're going to give you each 30 seconds for rebuttal. Just a reminder, maybe you could help us understand where you might be different than your opponent on this issue, if you would like to do that. Michelle?
UMPA is where the mayors from every city come together and discuss our power needs and power wants. And they have to collaborate and they have to work together in order to make our power work as well as it does. We're lucky that we have this. It's a huge asset to Provo. We need to be careful with it. Something that we're currently looking into with Provo Power is private investors coming in and helping us with green gases and being green efficient and putting the money there privately so that it doesn't have to
Thank you,
impact
Michelle.
our taxpayers.
I think where we're different is that I have spent 4 years on the council working through our municipal power, and that interest has continued in the 6 years, gosh, how long's it been? 4 years? 6 years? I can't remember. That I've been off the council. And so that's our difference. I know the director of UMPA. I know the member communities. I know the mayors that sit on that board.
Thank you, Sherry. All right, we're gonna mix this up just a little bit. I'm not sure if this is gonna work with the technology. We didn't test this, but we're just gonna go to the audience for a question here. Hopefully this goes far enough. Maybe do a couple of questions. I would like to grab a question from somebody who would consider themselves a young family. There's somebody here, a young family that lives in the central neighborhoods that would like to ask a question. Do we have that individual? Somebody here? Okay. And you're not with a campaign, are you? No. Okay. I'd like these questions to come from those that aren't with campaigns. Thank you. If you could introduce yourself and then ask a question for the candidates, we'll do the same format. Actually, hold on a second. I think we're going to change it up a little bit. With this question, we want to see how you're a little different. So we're going to give you another minute for rebuttal. I know it can be hard with 30 seconds. You're worried about getting the response. And so we'll give you a little more time. So it'll be a minute response and then a minute rebuttal. And the question will start with Sherry, the first one to respond.
Thank you.
I'm Austin Taylor. I live in the Dixon neighborhood. My wife and I just bought a house there. BYU students as well. We're 24.
Can you hold the mic close to you?
Yeah, I'm 23, she's 24. So outdoor recreation is something that's very important to us, as is conservation. We love Utah Lake, we love going there, but sometimes it's not so recreation friendly. So what would you guys do to work with the State Parks Agency to make that something that people would want to go to?
Thank you. Sherry?
Thank you. We do love our recreation here in Provo. It's one of the things that we have been incredibly successful with. I believe that one of the great ways that we as a city can partner is making access to the lake better, and that is happening right now with the redevelopment of the trail. We can get on our bikes, we can walk, we can hike, we can get to the lake. But also, we participate on the Utah Lake Commission, and there is a long-range plan. And some of those steps take a while, and it feels like it's slow. But they are slowly moving towards the solutions that will bring that lake back and make it even more enjoyable for us. The other one, I think, lies in helping us treat our sewage. We're going to have to put that, nobody likes to go to the lake and deal with green algae. And that happens only rarely, but the branding aspect of that lasts a lot longer in our minds.
Thank you, Sherry. Michelle?
So actually, green algae is good. It's the blue algae we're worried about. And the problem is that when it comes, it lets off a gas of some sort. And the way it gets stimulated is because Utah Lake is a shallow lake. And when the sun hits that, it hits the spores and they begin to develop and cause the problems. That's where the problems lie. I don't know how many of you have met with the Utah Lake Board, but they are fantastic. They are dedicated. Just recently, they released, I believe it was close to 100, maybe more, June suckers back into Provo, back into Utah Lake, which is huge. Those are the natural fish and habitat that belong there. They have been working relentlessly for years to remove the carp and get it more people-friendly and invite people down. But it's a little bit hard because Utah Lake is the bottom. It's called the bottom feeder, is what they told me when I met with them. Jordanelle gets a lot of water, then they release how much they want to let out, and Deer Creek does the same thing, and by the time it gets to Provo, we're at the bottom lake. So we have to take what we've got.
Thank you, Michelle.
And do the best we can.
All right, I lied. We're not going to give you a minute rebuttal just because in the interest of time, I want to get some more questions in. So 30-second rebuttal, if you can, if you'd like. We would like to know how maybe you feel you're different than the other candidate on this question. Sherry?
Apparently I got my colors of algae wrong. My apologies. But one of the things, we have to think bigger. We're thinking about transportation and how to connect our county across the lake because we're going to be so big. So what if a company wanted to come in and dredge and create islands and bridge the lake and do it in an environmentally sensitive way that would create the beaches that we want, the fishing, the economic opportunity along that lake? Is it time to have that conversation? I believe so. Will it all happen in my lifetime? Probably not.
Thank you, Sherry. Michelle?
The concept of bridging the lake is not a new concept. It's been on and off the table multiple times for multiple years. As of late, it would cost $1.58 billion to build a bridge. I don't see it happening because they've stated that in order to build that bridge, we would have to pay for it, and there has to be something on the other side that's functioning and big and developed enough to pay their side of it. We can take our money and be smarter with it and invest it in the lake and enjoy the recreation of it. I'm in no rush to spend $1.58 billion to build a bridge.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, we'll take one more question from the audience, and maybe we'll come back later, too, at the end and grab a question or two from the audience. Is there somebody here that maybe feels they're from the older crowd in the central neighborhoods and would like to ask a question? Maybe somebody that's children have grown up, left the home, but they still live in the city and live in the central neighborhoods and have a question?
Kirby, you're being so politically correct with your, someone that's raised their kids and...
Yeah, come on. Do we have somebody?
Can't say old person or no one would say it.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of those two things.
That'll work. If you could introduce
She's
yourself and let us know what neighborhood you're from.
Celeste Kennard. I'm, the acting chair of Joaquin neighborhood. We just lost ours, but haven't had a vote yet. I have kids that are just married, and I have an elementary school student. I've lived in the area for a while. One of the things with the mayor, because you direct the other departments, that has a huge impact on our neighborhood, Joaquin, with 14,000 people in it, is parking. I really appreciate that the mayor got rid of the towing, craziness. You were getting charged so much, but we went months without any parking enforcement, and our driveways get blocked. it's unsafe at the corners because people park all the way around, and we've got all these people that need to walk, either because they're going to school or because they're economically, that's the only thing that works. How could you address this? Parking enforcement.
Sherry, if you'd like to start, and then Michelle.
I thought didn't I start the last one?
All right, Michelle, if you'd like to start, and then Sherry.
Absolutely, thank you. Hi, Celeste. It's good to see you. The parking situation, when you start looking into it, the word parking almost becomes a swear word in Provo. The Provo citizens blame BYU students blame the Provo citizens, and it goes back and forth whose fault it is. I'm not about pointing and putting blame on others. I'm about solving problems, bridging the gap. We're going to fix that parking problem, and we need to enforce. Half the issues that we face is because of lack of enforcement. If we enforce and change the attitude, we'll fix that problem. I can't imagine having to get out of your driveway and being blocked. I would be pretty upset. And it's interesting, we were talking about it today. BYU students used to come and be dropped off by their parents, and not anymore. They drive themselves here and bring a car. Regardless if they're walking, they still have a car. There's a lot of cars in Provo, and we need to address the parking problem.
Thank you, Michelle. Sherry?
We're in the painful part. And the painful part is when you can't get out, or when you can't find the place, and it's inconvenient and it's difficult. The city did a strategic parking study, and as part of that parking study, they've come up with some recommendations. And the very first recommendation of that study was to hire a parking administrator in the city. We have now done that, and that individual is now working very carefully to be able to assess and create the kind of solutions that matter. This is the first time in our city's history that we've been able to do that. He'll be working with the neighborhoods. He'll also be working on our downtown problems as well. Confess I'm a little bit interested because I've worked through these problems a lot on the city council, but I'm a little bit interested because my opponent in a previous debate said she would solve the parking problem in 90 days. Now, there have been a lot of really intense
Thank you, Sherry.
conversations in the city, and I'd like to know how she's going to do that.
So is this the rebuttal part?
Yes, 30-second rebuttal.
All right, this is interesting because when I heard they were hiring a parking administrator, I really was caught off guard. I thought, is this a need or a want? Are we really to the point where we can't solve a parking problem? Do we have to pay a full salary out of our budget? I'm going to take a fresh look at it and put a fresh set of eyes on it and see what we can do. I think that the parking, as I've talked to multiple people in the city and neighborhoods, they agree that if we come to the table, collaborate,
Thank you, Michelle.
enforce code, the problem will be solved.
I hope you bring a fresh set of eyes, Michelle. I think that would be great. However, there are hundreds of experts in our city and hundreds of people that have lived this and brought their voice to the city, and we have been moving through the growth and the congestion that's coming. So we've implemented the very recommendations that the best experts in the country have assessed and asked us to do. And I think if we turn around and just look at fresh eyes, we're going to lose momentum once again, and we cannot afford to do that.
Thank you, Sherry. Our next question is going to come from Terry McCabe, the Franklin Neighborhood Chair. The person to respond first will be Sherry.
How can your administration be different than Mayor Curtis's? What's your decisions?
Refer to me as in the software world features. Be wearing socks. I've worked in a specific hard thing. I believe is our most issue. That without losing the charm of this community is has done that. I will be that way. We the with development low
the